Okay, Anna, we are back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, I just introduced myself. So I'm basically originally from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, now based in the University of Greifswald. I'm a historian who deals with visual propaganda and also the history of dress, identity, and nationalism. And from the one hand, and also I'm dealing with the Holocaust history on another. So what I'm going to talk in this paper today, it's to create sort of an introduction on the meaning of dress and fashion in the Holocaust, and rather to make a reflection on it as a broader topic, since it's still quite a marginal field of research, and I want to make it clear why it's so important in the women's research context too. So as a dress historian, I also deal with the history of the Holocaust. So recently I started to merge both fields in order to create a deeper understanding on how we can use a dress as a research tool in understanding better the Holocaust in general and the stories of women in the Holocaust in particular. So first of all, I would like to make it clear why did I choose such might be an extravagant topic on fashion in the Holocaust, or actually being more precise, I'd rather use the term dress in the Holocaust, because dress is a more precise and general point of focus. So as a historian of cultural and visual history, I see dress, body, and performance studies as important research tools in these fields, which sometimes helps us to discover and to analyze such angles which any other types of research can't reveal, or sometimes it's really hard to do, especially when we are talking about research of gender and women in a huge tragedy of the Holocaust, which covers many various fields of research: politics, psychology, history, sociology, anthropology, visual studies. So basically, when we take dress, it sort of crosses all of them. And where actually we also talk about the dress on a female body, it also has its own uniqueness and mediates between the body and the outside world, so to say. Of course, we also directly links to our other groups, which are dealing with the testimonies or to sexuality a lot. And I hope there will be also a place to discuss all this. And it's also good for us to remember through this dress that we are not dealing only with the victims, but also the bystanders and the perpetrators in, I think, in our research. And these broad topics helps us to go through all these groups and to analyze the approach. It's still not too much research done on the meaning of fashion and dress in the Holocaust. And it still needs to be extended, especially within the gender context, since dress very much linked to the body. And here I would like to mention a really brilliant book of Lucy Anlington, The Dressmaker of Auschwitz, where she did not only brought biographical histories of the dressmakers or tailors, but also analyzes gender context and various types of meaning of dress, also different during different stage of the Holocaust. So it's really recommended to read this book. And from this place, I would like to also to thank Beverly Chalmers, who first recommended me actually to read it. And I would also like to mention now, because I'm focusing on the Polish scholars, for instance, there are several of them who now made a big contribution to the field, especially when I'm thinking about Karolina Sulej, who made research on the personal belongings, among them especially the clothes in the camps during the Holocaust. So fashion and dress are often looking for us at something vain or extravagant, done of excess of free time or money. However, it's much beyond it. It can save life, it can destroy life, it can humiliate or raise from humiliation. It can distinguish and unify. It can actually, because of its visual appearance and the closeness to body, become a mediator between us and the world. And it's a very powerful thing which actually can teach us a lot about, about the past as historians. So I divided the general meaning of dress in the Holocaust to several topics, which I would like just to mention to you and extend on it, and then you're welcome to extend your research or discussion on them, for instance, tomorrow when we'll have our groups, because it's fascinating and important. So first of all, I would like to start with symbolical meaning and language of dress. So as we all know, dress has played the role of expressing individual and group belonging since really the dawn of civilization, being followed by multiple written and unwritten sumptuary laws, like, the dress clothing laws, in order to regulate habits and by traditions. And we are all familiar with the dress restrictions which made the Jews, or issued by the Jews, to protect themselves since early times, like the Middle Ages in different countries, such either to wear yellow badges or to wear special types of hats to avoid wearing rich fabrics, clothes, and jewelry, even before they were obliged to wear the David Star in the ghettos and the striped robes in the camps. Actually, the whole idea of making the Jews by their appearance, marking the Jews, wasn't invented by the Nazis, of course, from the clear sky, but was rather inherited by a rich historical tradition. Since when you visually mark someone as an inferior, it's also work on the psychological level on the person, and on the one hand, on the observer, and on the other hand, making a clear distinction line between them. This explains the meaning and the popularity of the uniforms and various signs the National Socialists used everywhere, starting with the paramilitary Hitlerjugend and the German Girls' League, the military ones, and ending with the David Star and various types of robes for prisoners in the camps. And if we are talking about the distinction between the prisoners and the warders, and made it easier for the perpetrators to see the prisoners as unhumans. Therefore, one of the first actions of the prisoners in the end of the war was to urge to exchange their clothes to normal ones, to feel them humans again. I should also mention another point which deals with the Jews and fashion industry before the Holocaust and at the beginning of it. While here we can look at the dress and fashion during the Holocaust from a more economic history point. It's broadly known that since 19th century, fashion industry in many European countries in general, and Germany in particular, had a large and sometimes major percentage of Jewish entrepreneurs engaged in various fields of this industry. Therefore, one of the first attempts of the National Socialists was to remove Jews from fashion industry, both profiting financially and ideologically. So, and I quote here Lucy Anglington, in 1933, German Jewish journalist Bella Fromm noted in her diary that Hitler had declared, the Berlin women must become the best dressed women in Europe. No more Paris models. And the same year, Joseph Goebbels put himself in charge of a fashion house, the Deutsches Modeamt, or the German Fashion Institute. And Goebbels recognized the power of fashion industry to shape image, which he knew was crucial for controlling behavior, end of quotation. So the Jewish owner American stylers were forced to give up their store fabrics, ateliers, and studios to the new Aryan owners. The Paris chic and fashion were called Sikh and Jewish influenced, and a new simple and close to nature fashion started to be produced instead. And now from here, I'm moving to the practical meaning of dress, which is extremely important. It's a huge field when we're speaking about dress and fashion during the Holocaust. From all the sides, victims, bystander, and perpetrators, because first of all, the clothes has a meaning when you pack it before you go to camp. So people were trying on the one hand to pack warm clothes in order to survive the winter. On another hand, also there was an attempt to put the best clothes in order to look better, healthy, and neat, because as a prisoner, you have more chances maybe to get respected when you're dressed properly. We are speaking about the period, like, you know, the 40s, when actually the outlook was extremely important in order to be perceived in a proper way. Now we are speaking about the surviving in the camps by having warm clothes and shoes, and also to taking care of it, because on the one hand, it's extremely important to survive the cold and hard labor with all this dress and also shoes protection. And on the other hand, the better you look, the more chance that you have make again a good impression on your prisoners. And also then it comes to the point where you need to keep your clothes and not to get them stolen from the camp, because it is your way to survive longer if you're dressed warm. And if someone actually steals your warm clothes, you will just not survive very, very quickly. Now we are going to the gender point of view, for instance, the whole issue of bras and underwear. While the sewing of them was rather quite risky, because they were often forbidden on the one hand, but on the other hand, especially for female, it has an important role, not only like, you know, from the aesthetic point of view or dignity, but really basic role to protect the body. Because without the bra, the breast, and especially that's one of the most sensitive parts of the body during the really hard labor, were very often damaged if you don't have the bra to protect them. It also touches the whole issue of underwear, for instance, during the menstruation. It's long as it took place before it steals completely. So here we're speaking about really female parts of of dress. And according to testimonies of women before after the liberation, what they craved, it was one of the most important things is to get back bras as a symbol of the humanity and femininity too. So they're speaking also about the whole dignity, how to feel yourself a woman again through the underwear and dresses. Now we also can discuss dress within the context of surviving by production of clothes and ghettos and serving in camps, like for instance, the most, of course, known example, the ghetto of Łódź, where it was a big belief that this is a way to survive as long as you produce, the fabrics and the clothes. The clothes can be also be exchanging, precious items to exchange. And one of the most important actually topics to focus beside the food, there were clothes, was the most valuable thing in the ghettos and camps. And last but not least, we are speaking here also interest of fashionable production by the Nazi wives. And therefore, actually, this interest saved lives of the dressmakers. Again, we have here the gender aspect very strong. First, the gender of the tailors, who were mostly females in the camps, and second, the gender of the perpetrators, interested in the fashionable clothes, and the whole interaction between them. And this interaction again gave lives to many women. So again, they're speaking about the whole dress as a symbol actually of life giving. It's also linked to the sexualized humiliation, which has been mentioned already previously, while the women were deprived of their clothes, when they were pushed to undress, to go all these checkings, and they lost their daily protection. And and also due to the clothes, sometimes there were created sexualized stereotypes on Jewish women, which already were existing before. So I could keep elaborating on dress and body connection, on the aesthetics of clothes and the psychological meaning, as well as colors. But since the time now is limited, I would just suggest you to show interest in this topic, which can provide brilliant revelations and insights into the gender and the Holocaust research, and also to keep some place for discussion tomorrow. So thank you.